Well, turning now to Arkansas, where a gun range owner is being criticized for banning Muslims from her establishment. In September, Jan Morgan decided she would not allow Muslims as customers at her firing range because she says Islam is not a religion protected by the Constitution, but rather a terrorist organization commanding followers to kill. Jan Morgan, owner of the Gun Cage shooting range there in Arkansas, joins us right now. Jan, welcome to the program. I know you decided to ban Muslims back in September. Why?
Trish, thanks for having me on. I appreciate you giving me a chance to share my side. And you mentioned that a lot of people have criticized, but I can tell you that overwhelmingly a number of people around the world have sided with me and stood with us on this. First of all, the reason I decided is because I'm not in a coffee donut shop business. People that come into my facility are handling lethal weapons, and I am personally responsible for the safety and security of people in my range while they're handling and shooting live firearms. So with that in mind, our government, meanwhile, is warning Americans that there are Islamists in every single state in this country who have aligned themselves with ISIS. Our government is also telling us consistently that we need to expect an attack at any time, anywhere, and to be very cautious. So what the government is not telling you, though, is that the root of this terrorism is Islam. And Dr. Jasser, who was on your show last week, mentioned that this is something that our government needs to acknowledge and deal with. There are 109 verses in the Quran that dictate hate, murder, and terror against all people who refuse to submit or convert to Islam. And since I don't know which Muslims are going to follow those dictates and be devout and commit crimes against innocent people and which ones are going to be peaceful, I'm going to err on the side of caution and say that if you are a Muslim, then you have made a conscious decision to align yourself with Islam, and surely you've read the Quran. I've read it, and I'm not even a Muslim. And so I'm going to err on the side of caution for safety for my customers.
Dr. Jasser, whom you just mentioned, is going to be on this show right after you, actually. He's Muslim himself. And you know, he might take issue with this because I think that, you know, the problem here is that you are casting everyone in the same light, and that's the concern. I mean, how do you know whether someone is an extremist or is just a peaceful person? By the way, how do you even know if someone's Muslim to begin with, Jan?
Well, first of all, when you say I'm casting everyone in the same light, if you are a Muslim, then you have surely read the Quran, and there are those 109 verses that dictate hate, murder, and terror. And I've always wanted to talk to Dr. Jasser about that and find out how he feels about those verses. Do moderate Muslims just expel those and say that we're not going to pay attention to those and therefore we're not going to kill innocent people? But I have to err on the side of caution, since I don't know, and I'm certainly not saying that all Muslims are terrorists, but today's moderate can certainly very quickly become tomorrow's jihadist. And so with that in mind, for the safety and security of people at my place, I have to err on the side of caution and say, if you align yourself with that ideology, then I'm assuming that you agree with those 109 verses, and therefore I can't hand you a loaded gun and allow you to shoot next to people you're commanded to kill.
Hang on one second, because I think Dr. Jasser is with us. I'd like to bring him into the conversation as well, because you're asking a pretty direct question there. And Dr. Jasser, you are Muslim, but you are, you know, obviously a very peaceful Muslim who is not involved in any of the things that Jan is talking about. So how does that make you feel, knowing that if you wanted to go in and use her firing range, she'd turn you away?
Not only would she turn me away, I concealed carry, and where am I supposed to practice? The filter doesn't work. It's unenforceable. I see this as un-American. Certainly, you know, listen, Jan, if you look at my work, you'll know that I believe Muslims should be leading this fight. I think your reaction is normal.
But they aren't leading the fight, Dr. Jasser. They aren't leading the fight.
Let me just respond. You have a normal response to a fear of those who are using our faith, that are within the pool of Islam, that threaten us, be it radicalized Muslims in America or Khomeini in Iran, Muslim Brotherhood. I mean, you are true in that there's hundreds of millions of Muslims that are in that pool of radical Islam, but you are alienating the very people who would be the source of the cure. And not to mention, it's unenforceable. Islam is an ideology. Muslims who are going to be threats to you, unlike myself, I'm going to walk in and test you and say, you know what, I'm a Muslim, give me service. The radicals are going to look at you in the face and lie to you and not tell you what they are, and thus you're going to actually cause more of a problem.
Jan, I'm curious about the logistics of all this. Do you have a sign that says Muslims are not welcome? We understand that there were two Hindu men that were turned away from your facility recently.
Right. Those Hindu men were turned away not because I thought they were Muslim, because I did not. They were turned away because of their erratic behavior. We screen people for a number of different things. When you come into a firearms-related facility, if you appear to be under the influence of any mind-altering drugs, if you are combative, if there's something about your behavior that gives us cause for concern, certainly we're not going to let you handle lethal weapons in close proximity with other people. As far as Dr. Jasser is concerned, I have a great admiration for him. I've watched his documentary, The Third Jihad, and Dr. Jasser and I agree that there needs to be reform in Islam in this country. And if Muslims would stand up and get behind Dr. Jasser and what he's trying to do, he's trying to get rid of political Islam. He's trying to get rid of those facets of Islam that are the problem. And if Muslims would stand with him, which, as I understand it, he's having trouble getting them to stand behind him.
Well, no, obviously what he's doing is incredibly important because the risk, of course, is that we're going to see more and more folks like yourself responding as you have. Back to the legality of this, because we have a lawyer that's going to be joining us momentarily, and I want to get his thoughts. But you know, you think about the Civil Rights Act, and that prevents discrimination like what you're doing.
The Civil Rights
Act
makes it
illegal.
Well, I am a private club. The Civil Rights Act exempts private clubs.
Are you a private club?
Go back and read. Yes, ma'am. I'm a private club. We've been talking about that since. Unfortunately, so many media outlets have ignored that fact. But private clubs have full discretion on who they allow and do not allow in their facility. Number two, there's also the issue of the federal government's alcohol, tobacco, and firearms division, because those folks tell any federal firearms license facilities, they give us a little extra discretion, Trish. They tell us that if for any reason we feel that someone might use a firearm in the commission of a crime, then we are to stop that transaction, to stop it and err on the side of caution. And we don't have to give a reason. We simply can say, we're not going to do this transaction. And I can tell you that there are people, there are firing ranges as well as gun stores and firearms-related businesses around this country that are doing the same thing I'm doing, not just with Muslims, but with people that they feel align themselves with ideologies or organizations that are known for terrorism.
Jan, you say this is actually...
But Jan, you do realize that the message you're sending is going to be on the front homepage and has been of the Khomeinists, Islamists, the radicals, the Wahhabis in Saudi Arabia. All of our enemies use what you're doing to make it seem that America is inhospitable to Muslims, and thus the true Muslims that believe in freedom and liberty are going to be not at home here, so therefore why not get radicalized? So therefore your strategies actually feeding the mantra of radicalization is exactly what CARE and other groups want to have happen.
You know, Dr. Jasser, and with all due respect, I disagree with you. I think that people are now starting to talk about Islam, and we're actually starting to get time on the airwaves to talk about the root of this problem. And what I would like to see is that more Muslims, the good Muslims in this country, need to get behind you. Where are they? Why aren't they standing with you?
They're going to get behind me because I believe political Islam. But wait a minute, I believe that political Islam is the problem. If you put the poison pill that all of Islam is the problem, you're not only going to lose me, but you're going to have a strategy in which a quarter of the world's population is thus targeted and actually be much more harmful to American security than your strategy of a... I think your result, your dysfunctional result, is because our government has not been wise and open in targeting political Islam, and it creates these types of dysfunctional
Jan and
responses.
Zudi, we have to take a quick break, and we're going to be back with both of you, as well as an attorney joining on the legal constitutionality of all of this. Stay with us. You know, we were just talking to Jan Morgan, who owns a firing range in Arkansas, and she has banned all Muslims from firing there at her range. While we are asking the question, would that Muslim ban hold up in a court of law? Federal defense attorney and constitutional law expert Paige Pate joins me right now. And Paige, good to have you here. She's saying absolutely she is a private club and therefore is able to exercise that kind of discretion. She feels very strongly that people of Muslim faith are potentially violent, potential extremists, and she does not want them using firearms at her place of business. Does she have a right to say that?
Well, we're dealing with a couple of things here. First of all, we can debate the policy implications all afternoon, but it is clearly unlawful. It is a violation of the Civil Rights Act to prohibit a certain race or national origin from coming into a place of public accommodation. Now, I heard Jan say, well, look, I'm a private club. That doesn't apply to me. And it is correct that a private club can get out of that restriction so long as they are truly a private club. Now, you're not a private club just because you say you are. Courts will look to your history. Did you advertise to the public? Do you have a selective membership? Do the members control the way the organization works? Those are the things that we see in a private club, and I simply don't think they're present in this particular business.
She's actually seen her business quadrupled
Right.
if you can believe it, since she put in place this kind of rule. Again, I guess it goes back to, whether it's a club or not. Pretty amazing that private clubs can make those kind of flat-out discriminatory rules. But I guess in this kind of environment where people are so worried about potential attacks, you can understand, Paige, why they might revert to something like that.
Absolutely. And Jan did raise another argument saying, look, there are government regulations that allow me as a rifle range owner to prohibit certain people from coming in the establishment that I think may be dangerous. And that's a different type of an exception. And if she can truly say, look, this individual I know will be dangerous because of what he said, what he's done, he's made visits here in the past, then that is permissible. But she cannot simply have a blanket prohibition against a particular race or a particular religion. Wow. It's not just against federal law, it's against Arkansas law as well.
Very interesting story. We're going to have to leave it there.